On December 11, 2019, a woman stood before the International Court of Justice at The Hague. She was there to defend her country against charges of genocide. Her name was Aung San Suu Kyi. She had won the Nobel Peace Prize in 1991. She had spent 15 years under house arrest for fighting for democracy and human rights in Myanmar. She was, for 2 decades, one of the most celebrated moral figures in the world. And there she stood, in the world's highest court, before the world's cameras, defending the Myanmar military's campaign against the Rohingya Muslim minority. A campaign that the United Nations had already described as bearing the hallmarks of genocide. A campaign that had killed an estimated 10,000 people. That had driven 740,000 from their homes. That had burned hundreds of villages to ash. That had subjected tens of thousands of women to systematic sexual violence. She said the word genocide was misleading. She said Myanmar would handle it internally. She said, with hindsight, we might think the situation could have been handled better. With hindsight. This is the story of what happened in Rakhine State in 2017, and of why the woman who should have stopped it instead went to The Hague to explain why it wasn't genocide. The Rohingya are not a recent problem that Myanmar invented in 2017. They are an ethnic Muslim minority who have lived in Rakhine State, Myanmar's western coastal province, for centuries. They trace their presence in the region to the 15th century. They speak their own language. They have their own cultural and religious traditions. They are, by any reasonable historical definition, indigenous to the place they have inhabited for generations. The Economist once called them the most persecuted people in the world. That designation predates 2017 by decades. The specific legal mechanism that produced the Rohingyas' contemporary statelessness was the 1982 citizenship law, legislation passed by Myanmar's military government that recognized 135 ethnic groups as official citizens of Myanmar. The Rohingya were not among them. The law classified them as Bengali, implying they were migrants from Bangladesh rather than indigenous residents of Myanmar, and stripped them of the citizenship rights they had previously held. They could not vote. They could not attend university. They could not hold government jobs. They required official permission to travel between townships. They could not marry without government approval. They were rendered, by law, a stateless people in the country where their grandparents had been born. The persecution intensified across the following decades. In 2012, intercommunal violence between Buddhist and Muslim communities in Rakhine State killed hundreds and displaced approximately 140,000 Rohingya, who were placed in internment camps that, by 2017, still confined them. Over 120,000 Rohingya were living in these camps when the 2017 military operation began. They had been there for 5 years. By 2017, the Rohingya who remained in their villages in northern Rakhine State were living under some of the most severe restrictions on movement, economic activity, and basic rights that any population in the contemporary world was subject to. The military operation of August 2017 was not the beginning of the Rohingya crisis. It was its most violent chapter. On August 25, 2017, a Rohingya militant group called ARSA, the Arakan Rohingya Salvation Army, attacked approximately 30 Myanmar police posts in northern Rakhine State. The attacks killed approximately 12 police officers. The Myanmar military's response was not proportionate to the provocation. It was a clearance operation, the military's own term, that targeted not ARSA combatants but the Rohingya civilian population of northern Rakhine State as a whole. If this history is new to you, subscribe to Unsolved East and hit like. New episodes every week. The Myanmar military's clearance operation in northern Rakhine State began on August 25, 2017, and produced what the United Nations subsequently described as a textbook example of ethnic cleansing. In the first weeks of the operation, Myanmar security forces, including the Tatmadaw, the national military, and local Buddhist militia groups that operated alongside them, moved through Rohingya villages in northern Rakhine State with a systematic thoroughness that the evidence produced by satellite imagery, survivor testimony, and on-the-ground investigation by human rights organizations documented in real time. The documentation was specific. Entire villages were burned, residents beaten, raped, and mutilated, and children slaughtered. Satellite imagery analyzed by Human Rights Watch and other organizations confirmed that Myanmar security forces claimed they were carrying out a campaign to reinstate stability in the country's western region while, as the imagery showed, at least 354 villages in northern Rakhine State were partially or totally destroyed by fire between August and September 2017. 354 villages. Confirmed from space. While the Myanmar government denied that atrocities were occurring, the sexual violence was systematic and documented through survivor testimony collected by UN investigators, Human Rights Watch, and Médecins Sans Frontières. Tens of thousands of Rohingya women and girls were subjected to rape and gang rape, used, as the UN investigators concluded, as a deliberate weapon of ethnic cleansing rather than as incidental violence of individual soldiers. The specific pattern of the violence, the burning of villages after residents had fled or been killed, the execution of men and older boys, the sexual violence against women and girls, the destruction of food supplies and livestock, was consistent across hundreds of separate incident reports collected from survivors who had reached Bangladesh. Consistency across hundreds of independent accounts does not occur by chance. UN investigators say as many as 10,000 Rohingya were killed. Another 730,000 Rohingya fled the massacre for Bangladesh, joining 300,000 Rohingya who had previously fled oppression in Myanmar. The exodus was the largest and fastest refugee movement in Asia since the end of the Vietnam War. The international response. The international community's response to the Rohingya crisis followed the pattern this channel has documented across multiple episodes. Expressions of concern. Demands for access. Reports. Resolutions. China supported Myanmar in the UN Security Council. Chinese leader Xi Jinping met Myanmar's military chief Senior General Min Aung Hlaing in November 2017. China's position blocked the Security Council from taking the kind of binding action that would have had meaningful consequence. Not a single high-ranking Myanmar military official has been prosecuted for the egregious campaign of violence against the Rohingya. The international community watched. It documented. It condemned. It did not stop it. Aung San Suu Kyi's moral authority was built across decades. She was the daughter of Aung San, the father of Burmese independence, assassinated in 1947. She had returned to Burma in 1988 to care for her dying mother and found herself at the center of a democracy movement that the military government violently suppressed. She became the most prominent symbol of nonviolent resistance to military rule in Southeast Asia. She was placed under house arrest in 1989. She spent 15 of the following 21 years confined to her home in Rangoon, unable to leave, unable to see her family abroad, maintaining her moral position and her commitment to non-violence while the military government attempted, repeatedly, to get her to simply leave the country. She refused. The Nobel Committee awarded her the Peace Prize in 1991 for her non-violent struggle for democracy and human rights. She could not attend the ceremony. Her sons accepted it on her behalf. The world celebrated. Before taking power in Myanmar in 2016, Suu Kyi was a Nobel Peace Prize winner. Her win in Myanmar's first-ever democratic elections 3 years ago was celebrated worldwide. Soon, however, Suu Kyi's international reputation would be in tatters. When the Rohingya crisis intensified in 2017, the world looked to Aung San Suu Kyi. Aung San Suu Kyi denied that ethnic cleansing was taking place and dismissed international criticism of her handling of the crisis, accusing critics of fueling resentment between Buddhists and Muslims in the country. As reports of ethnic cleansing emerged, the world reacted with disbelief as Suu Kyi stayed silent. When she did speak, she said, "With hindsight, we might think that the situation could have been handled better." That was her sole public expression of regret. For the burning of 354 villages. For the killing of 10,000 people. For the displacement of 740,000. For the systematic sexual violence against tens of thousands of women. With hindsight, it could have been handled better. At The Hague in December 2019, she led Myanmar's legal defense personally. Suu Kyi continued to reject charges of genocide, and said that, if war crimes have been committed by members of Myanmar's defense services, they will be prosecuted through our military justice system. The military justice system that had placed her under house arrest for 15 years. The specific irony of that, using the credibility built by surviving military persecution to defend the military that had persecuted her, was not lost on the people watching from the refugee camps in Bangladesh. In February 2021, the Myanmar military staged a coup and arrested Aung San Suu Kyi. She is currently imprisoned by the same military whose genocide she had defended at The Hague. The Rohingya refugee camps in Cox's Bazar, Bangladesh are the largest in the world. Approximately 1 million people live in them. They arrived in waves, some in 2017, some in earlier rounds of persecution, some in the most recent violence that continues to push people across the border. They live in bamboo and tarpaulin shelters on hillsides that flood in the monsoon season. They have limited access to education, limited freedom of movement, limited economic opportunities, and limited prospect of the one thing they came for, safety. Bangladesh, one of the most densely populated and poorest countries in the world, has borne the primary humanitarian burden of the Rohingya crisis since 2017 with inadequate international support and with a refugee population that shows no sign of returning to Myanmar anytime soon. The Myanmar government signed an agreement in 2017 to repatriate the refugees. Not one Rohingya has been repatriated. The conditions in Myanmar that produced the exodus have not changed in ways that would make return safe. The military that conducted the clearance operation is still in power. It staged a coup against the civilian government in 2021 and has since been fighting its own civil war against pro-democracy forces across Myanmar. The specific officers who commanded the 2017 operation have not been prosecuted. Not a single high-ranking Myanmar military official has been prosecuted for the egregious campaign of violence against the Rohingya. The International Court of Justice case, filed by the Gambia on behalf of the Organization of Islamic Cooperation, is still ongoing. The International Criminal Court has opened an investigation. Neither has yet produced a trial of any Myanmar military commander. The Rohingya in Cox's Bazar are not going home. Myanmar has not been held accountable. Aung San Suu Kyi is in prison, sentenced by the military she defended to 27 years on charges that international observers have described as politically motivated. The Nobel Peace Prize she won in 1991 has not been revoked. The camps are still there. 1 million people. Still waiting.